Basically, today's focus is on narrative compre. Okay, I think by now you are very familiar that narrative compre is something that I think comparatively with non-narrative compre, in terms of the questions, they are a little bit harder to answer. Okay, and that's for a very simple reason because non-narrative compre comprises of your summary. And also non-narrative texts, they are generally about facts and figures, right? Providing you with information. So most of the time, the questions can be a bit more literal. Okay, they are testing you on certain concepts. But for narrative, it's a little bit different because narrative, there will be use of like literary devices like oxymoron, hyperbole, and all. Um, and it will be something that, you know, eh, will test you in terms of inferential skills. It will test you in terms of language use. Okay, so there will be expect a lot of language use questions, which can be quite hard to manage in a way. Yeah. But then again, there are always certain somehow techniques to answer these questions, especially so for your inferential questions. Okay, inferential questions, I think by now you're Sec 2, you're quite familiar. I think a lot of you probably your WA is over because next week is going to be week 9 of school, right? And then after that, it's going to have a lot of basically we are going to have some holidays, I think. And then there's going to be election day for the president, right? So I think there might be some changes, but we'll just update you in due course, okay? Now, can see my screen, right? I'm screen sharing. Okay. We will dive right into narrative compre. Okay. Although your WEs are over, doesn't mean your end of year exam is over. Yes, you're right, Jian Hao. Huh? Your end of year exam is next week? Really? Usually end of year exam is after when term 4 starts, after your September holiday. Not for English, is it? Probably for other subjects. Maybe your oral exam might start first earlier, but generally the main paper, paper one and paper two, will be sometime third week of term four. Okay. Then after that, shortly after, teachers will mark and everything. And then I think the sec ones to threes, they will go on a holiday earlier than the rest. Okay, because the school needs to prepare the graduating students for O levels and N levels. Okay, so it will be very soon, even though your WA is just over. Soon you'll realize that, oh, end of year exam is here. Okay, so yeah, so let's just focus on the narrative compre today. Either way, it'll be useful anyway if you're doing you have to be doing your end of your exam, huh? Okay, now the first thing, of course, for narrative is always inferential questions. I think inferential questions are the hardest to answer for students. There are three types: literal, inferential, and evaluative. I wouldn't sum it up as three types, but these are the three main types. Okay, there are other questions like, for example, language use questions as well. Okay, so this one, it really needs to understand. Basically, the answer is not found in the text. I think you're very familiar with inferential questions by now. You are supposed to read between the lines. Okay, now, for some cases, you might need to use your experience to explain. So it's double E. Okay. A lot of times the answer is not found in the text. So you have to make your best prediction based on the context given to you from the text. Okay. So a lot of times you are actually expected to give your own experiences as well. Okay. Yeah, basically that's it. Later on, when we encounter some questions, we'll go through and apply. Okay. It may begin with the question word why for a simple reason because most of the inferential questions starts with the instructional verb explain. Okay, so you are expected to explain. And when you explain, sometimes the question can be, okay, hold on, someone is here. I think it's Siron. Okay, right. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. So I was saying, most of the time it's explained, the instructional verb is explained, and then sometimes they might phrase the question as, why do you think this? Okay, or why is it that the writer does this? Okay. So it may also contain key inference words such as, what is the writer suggesting? Or what does the writer suggest? What is he trying to imply? Okay, sometimes they are just direct, they will just tell you infer. And if the question is what can you infer, then it's quite obvious it's inferential questions. Okay, but there are other times whereby you might not be able to tell whether is it an inference or literal. But it's actually quite straightforward. Literal questions, you can find the answer. Inferential, you can't. And inferential means you have to be able to make sense of the context and come up with your best prediction, sometimes even using prior knowledge, like some of your some of your prior knowledge or maybe your personal experiences on this. Okay. Now, next one, it may be phrased in many other ways, requiring you to make connections between parts of the text. There are contextual clues you should use to get the correct answers. I think this is a very important term. Okay, contextual clues. You for certain questions, you can highlight the key phrase that is stated in the question, go back to the text, and maybe just read a few sentences before and a few sentences after, because that will really set the context. And when you're able to see the context, then you might be able to make connections and come up with your predictions. Okay? So that's how we can deal with inferential questions. Yeah. So number one, of course, study the question words. Later on, we'll also discuss how we can actually unpack a question. What do we mean by unpack? It's just like a present given to you, right? You want to just open up and see what are the different parts of it. Okay. So we will need to learn how to unpack and really study the question words. Within a question, there will be things like the instructional verb, like explain, suggest, infer, imply. Okay, there will also be the directional verb. Directional verb means it will tell you which paragraph to choose from. Okay, so that's also a very important piece of information, right? Just refer to the right paragraphs. And then another thing is you must also be able to highlight keywords in the question. Like, what is the question asking? Okay, so then by unpacking the questions, you will then be able to be guided in what sense. If let's say the question asks for why, you're supposed to explain a reason, state a reason. The reason might not be in the text. If it's in the text, it's literal. Like, why does she do that? And then you can find the answer. If it is not in the text, then it's inferential. So you have to make a prediction why, the character did something. Okay? Suggest, imply, and infer state the meaning of X. Relate it to the context for a fuller explanation. Okay. So if it is the word suggest, imply, or infer, it's basically just to state the meaning. But then again, the answer is not in the text. So you have to state based on your own viewpoint. Okay, based on your own prediction. Right? Okay, let's take a look at this example. Anyone can read? If not, I'll have to call names. Anyone wants to volunteer? I always like to start with the first letter. Of the alphabet. We don't have A, we don't have B, we have C, right? So Siron will go first. Siron, can you read this short, very short? 2 paragraphs, please. Are you sure, Siron? Okay, I'm gonna take note of this, huh? Then next lesson, please get it fixed, okay? Siron says that his microphone is not working. Can we have a wheel? Natalie says, okay, let me see. Spin the wheel. Wheel of names. Okay, I think that will be useful because for my secondary school students, generally a lot of you don't like to volunteer. Unlike my primary school students, whenever I ask them to volunteer, everybody is so eager to volunteer. Okay. So let me see. Who do I have? I need the participants list. Sirong, if your mic is broken, if your name is chosen for some questions, you can still answer by typing the answer in the chat, okay? For those of you whose mic are broken, I think you need to get it fixed. Cannot be every week your mic is broken. Okay, you need to get it fixed. Okay, either way, I think if you were to use it for like sometimes you have e-learning and all, classroom discussion, right? Home-based learning, I think it's important also. Let me type out all your names on the wheel first. Sherman and Georgine. Okay, great. Okay, let's start. Larissa, can we have Larissa to read this very short paragraph? Let me just put it on the screen again. It's here. Okay, Larissa, let's go.
Amy froze when her name was announced. Her teacher smiled at her assuringly and said, "You can do it, Amy." The walk to the stage seemed to be long. As Amy took each step, her feet became heavier and heavier. She broke out in a cold sweat.
Very good. Thank you so much, Larissa. Question one, why did Amy freeze when she heard her name? Okay, this one I'm going to get someone else to answer. Why did she freeze when she heard her name? Okay. I would say that this one not really inferential. It's like half literal actually. It's quite obvious. Who is next? Okay, Caitlin. Caitlin. Okay, why did she freeze when she heard her name? If you are not able to speak, please type it in the chat, yeah? But I would think that everybody should be quite okay with their speakers. Caitlin, why do you think Amy froze or freeze when she heard her name? Okay, because she had to go on stage. Even though they didn't really directly tell you, oh, she's going on stage to perform or whichever, or give a speech, you can, however, tell from like, that's why I say, try to read a few sentences before, a few sentences after, because she froze, right? Amy froze. So you can read on, read on, read on. The walk to the stage. Even though they didn't directly tell us that she is performing or something, but at least they tell us that she's going on stage, right? And the walk on to the stage, yeah? Okay, next person for the second question. Okay, Zuo Jin, we have a winner. Amy's feet became heavier and heavier. What can we infer from this? Oh, Kieran is here. He just came in, is it? Let me see. Okay, let's continue. Who was it just now? Zojin. Okay, Zojin, why do you think Amy's feet became heavier and heavier? What can we infer? Again, heavier and heavier is a metaphor. Basically, does her feet really become heavier? No, right? It's basically using a literary device. Okay, so it's a metaphor that says that her feet became heavier and heavier. So what can we infer from this?